The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Today with Eagles lineman Stefan Wisniewski. Wrestling background. First of all, I guess, when did you get started? How did you get started? How old were you?
I think I started wrestling in third grade. My dad got me into it, did it for a while, and then took a break for a little bit, came back to it in high school. It's a rough sport, but you got to love the grind. I really do think it was a great kind of cross-training for football. I've had a lot of people who watch me play football tell me they look like I got a wrestling background, and it's a compliment as a lineman. Essentially, more or less, I'm wrestling with the D lineman out there, and just understanding leverage and how to push, pull, how to lean, how to just turn a guy's shoulders, just different things like that, learning leverage. And I really do think there's a lot of crossover. Mental toughness is a huge one, too. If you can wrestle, you can do pretty much any other sport. But love the sport and kind of miss it sometimes.
Why did you take a break from it, and what brought you back?
Just want to try basketball for a little bit, different winter sport. But wrestling's, it's more fun, especially for a guy like me, I'm not going to run around and do too much on a basketball court, but on a wrestling mat, it's probably better suited to my skills.
How did you fare? How far did you go? You were in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes. Yeah, I after my sophomore year, I stopped so I could just train football year-round. I was, placed in the section or something. I didn't do too great in states or anything, but sometimes I regret that. I think if I wrestled my senior year, I could have done pretty well. Would have been, one of the biggest, strongest guys out there and, having some wrestling skills. Sometimes I regret not doing that, but, chose not to focus on football. But I do love wrestling and encourage any young kid out there who plays football, loves football, to do that in the winter. Keep you strong, keep you in shape.
Who were some of the guys you remember scrapping with back in those days in high school?
That was a long time ago. I remember wrestling my dad, actually, which my dad was a state champ wrestler, and, he encouraged me to get into it, and he used to wrestle with me. And I remember, my sophomore year, I started getting bigger and stronger, and as a sophomore, our match was pretty even, and then after that, he didn't really want to wrestle me anymore. As I continued to get bigger and stronger, I found that interesting, but he definitely toughened me up.
Penn State guy, did you go to many matches in college? Do you still keep an eye on the Nittany Lions and what Kale's got going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely went to matches in college, and I still follow those guys, catch a match, in the offseason whenever I get a chance, and love rooting for those guys, love what Kale's doing. He's an impressive coach, unbelievable, toughness and mindset, and instills that in all of his wrestlers, and a lot of great kids too. I know some of the wrestlers they've had here lately, and just some great kids that work really hard and enjoy what they do, and you see it out on the mat. I love watching them. Dominant wrestlers, but guys that they do it the way it's supposed to be done, and it's fun to watch.
When you look at it, your dad being the state champion and having that family history within the sport, and then to turn around and be like, I'm going to play in the Super Bowl. At what point was playing in this game kind of a career goal for you? Obviously, getting to the league is one of the first goals, but the reality of actually being able to play the last football game on a Sunday during the course of the year, what's that mean to you and your family?
It means a lot. As a kid, I grew up an NFL fan and wanting to play in the NFL. And whenever you dream of playing in the NFL, you always dream of playing on the big stage in the Super Bowl. And when I was young, I always thought about that. And then, honestly, being in the NFL, I was on some bad teams. So you kind of almost, that dream kind of fades to the back of your mind a little bit when you're, 3-13. But this year, the way we were playing, you start thinking, oh, my gosh, we could be the best team in the league. And as the season went on, we were playing great, number one seed, and realized that, that was a possibility, and lost some good players. But, we never changed our goal, and that was to be the best, and now we're one win away.
talked a lot about wrestling those guys on the line. We asked James Ferentz the same thing, but he really didn't notice if a guy wrestled because he did a lot of research on who was on the other side of the line. Do you study the guys on the other side of the line to know if they're wrestlers, they're going to be giving you maybe a different look than you might get from a guy who didn't have a wrestling background?
I think sometimes you can recognize it, and sometimes, honestly, that'll be in a scouting report. We have scouts that look up that kind of stuff. That might be a note in their scouting report. So if you know you're going against a wrestler, you know he's going to be tough, you know he's going to understand leverage, and he's going to fight for inside hands, and he's going to be a smart player.
If there was a guy that who didn't wrestle that you think would have been a great high school wrestler, great college wrestler on the team right now, who do you think it'd be?
We got a lot. I wouldn't have wanted to wrestle Jason Peters, that's for sure, or Brandon Brooks. It's probably a long list of guys. We got the best athletes in the world, playing football on this team. So there's quite a few I wouldn't want to mess with. Probably Brooks and JP be at the top of the list.
How would Foles stand as a wrestler?
I don't know. I've never thought about it. I have no idea. That would probably not be his strong suit, but he's pretty darn good at throwing the football, so we'll let him stick to that.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to MattTalkOnline.com/GetShortTime to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at MattTalkOnline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.